Welcome to the lesson on probability, compound probability. Compound probability is the probability of two or more events taking place. Here's what I mean. You should already know how to find the probability of one event. For example, if I have this coin, it has two sides, head and tails, and if I want to find the probability of flipping a heads, I know the probability of getting heads is 1 out of 2, because there's 1 heads out of 2 total outcomes. Similarly, if I have a number cube, like this one that I just made out of a Rubik's Cube, I know that the probability of getting a 1 is 1 out of 6, because there's one outcome that's a 1, and there are 6 total outcomes. But what if I want to know the probability of flipping a heads and rolling a 1? How do I do it? Well, first, we're going to have to figure out how many total outcomes there are. And one powerful way to do this is to create an outcome chart. Follow along with me. To create an outcome chart, we're going to create a table that works kind of like a multiplication table. On the top part of our table, we're going to write the outcomes for event number 1. That's the number cube. Zoom in a little bit for you. Okay. If you roll a number cube, you can get a 1, a 2, a 3, 4, a 5, or a 6. Each one of these columns goes with one of those outcomes. On the other side of the table, we'll write the outcomes for flipping the coin. If you flip a coin, you can get a heads or you can get tails. Each one of these outcomes represents a row. Just like a multiplication table, we fill in the inside with what's on the side or top of the table. So for example, this represents flipping a tails and rolling a 1. Here's a tails and a 2, tails and a 3. You should be able, as you're doing this, to realize how many total outcomes there are going to be without counting. See if you can identify that without counting as we're filling in the rest of this table. There are 12 total outcomes. And that makes sense because there's 2 for the coin and there's 6 for the number cube. And we have to combine them using multiplication to show all of the outcomes. You get 12 total outcomes from 2 times 6. And back to our question, what's the probability of flipping a heads and rolling a 1? Well, the probability of heads and 1 is going to be 1 out of 12, because only one of those outcomes is a heads and a 1, and there are 12 total.